Well, hey everybody, it's your good friend James Manning the third here, and you know, I just happened to have today off, which is November 11th, um, 2021, and now we celebrate this day as Veterans Day, um, and of course, a nation should celebrate their veterans. These are folks that would do anything for the people at home, anything. And I just think it's a travesty that they're a resource, such a precious resource that's squandered for nothing. Uh, and nothing is more an example of this than what this day was originally meant to commemorate, which is November 11th, 1918, Armistice Day. And I always have trouble with this because I think sometimes when things have gone on for long enough, people forget history. And I just wanted to bring that back a little bit and remind people that this is about Armistice Day. Over 100 years now of where essentially what it boils down to is different factions throwing away the lives of people who really don't have anything to do with it and would rather not, on both sides. On both sides. What comes to mind is the Christmas truce of 1914. I believe it was 1914. It could have been 15, but if memory serves me correctly, it was 1914, where the lines stopped fighting on Christmas and they came out of their trenches. There was reports of a soccer match that went on. These guys were playing soccer with each other. Things like chocolate and cigarettes were exchanged. Most of them didn't speak English or German, but some of the soldiers both spoke French, and they would communicate in that way. There was even a story I heard of a great big German, who got up and gave a rousing speech and then broke his rifle on a tree. Sadly, this infuriated the officers, and the killing resumed, of course, and didn't stop for 4 more years in 1918. But it just goes to show, without these competing factions who are vying for power, you don't have this issue. You don't have the conflict. A lot of very new and strange things happened when World War I came around. You're talking about a group of people who are used to, Napoleon's cuirassiers. That's like in the fresh memory of what war looks like to most of these people. The reality was something terrible of modern warfare. Many just forgotten. I mean, think about it. It's 100 years ago. We celebrate Veterans Day now. I think we should still celebrate Armistice Day. Power. That's really what it boils down to. Power. They were only after power. The Germans felt like they were being encircled by their enemies, and French and British and others couldn't handle that, and part of that was the Turks. The Turkish had signed up, with the Germans, and there was a battle called Gallipoli, which was a naval assault battle and included the British and other Allied forces, a lot of Australians. These Australians were basically brought into hostile territory and just kind of dumped off. Most of them didn't even make it to the correct place where they were supposed to be dumped off, where the plan was supposed to be. Some of them were just marooned on the side of the strait with nowhere to go. Get off of the boat, and now they're there. This battle was originally the brainchild of Winston Churchill, who was in command of the British Navy at the time. And he argues that they changed the plan and blah, blah, blah. But when it comes down to it, you're talking about, you know, I looked it up earlier because I'm not a numbers guy. I have to look up what the numbers were because I remember the stories of people, firsthand accounts a lot of times, and they're incredible. But both sides, it said, suffered 250,000 casualties. And of that, on the Allies side, it was like 46,000 dead and 65,000 dead on the Turkish side. And that's like the beginning of the conflict. And some of the numbers I got from by the end, it was something like a total for the Allies killed was 187,000, almost 188,000 killed Allies. And the Turks only suffered 161,000, almost 162,000. So, for about 26,000 difference, the Turks were considered the victors. I don't think anybody wins. Like, it's kind of just people who are far away from this, what has to be done, are the ones calling the shots. And just tearing up innocent people. I mean, and it's something else to take into account that these are just military. These are military numbers. Okay, that the government signed up and said this is the way it's going to be, but things don't go that way. November 11th, 1918, at the 11th hour. That's what we should remember because it's some estimated over around 40 million people died. 9.7 million military personnel were killed, roughly. But we're talking about 10 million civilians here, too. There really isn't very many people on this planet today who their families weren't affected by the First World War. And I would say that I don't think that there's anyone on the planet today that hasn't been affected by the First World War. No one. I mean, all of our families, most likely, there are probably a few, maybe just were somewhere where they weren't affected at all. But for the most part, anyone who's in America today, or especially in Europe, we had people who were affected by this. I mean, on a global scale, you had people, there were things affected in negative and positive ways. But if you think about just the context of how many, and America joined late, but we still lost, upwards in the millions. I believe it was like, I can't, right, like I said, I'm not a numbers guy, but we sent many. The number that comes to head is 1.7 million that we sent, but I don't know about that. And they came back, and we lived with them. These are our ancestors. The First World War is an ancestral milestone because it affected almost everyone on the planet, and it changed the outlook of what our planet is today. You had proto-World War II armies at the end of the First World War. It changed our planet, American nation, of course, but also the nations of Europe, all of them, forever, irreparably. And that's why I wanted to do this short, it's a little talk that I'm doing. I know it's not funny. I tried to think of ways to make it more funny. But this day is just an important one for me because it is such a marker of who we are as humans, of what we can withstand, and what it looks like, the consequences of our actions when we do something on such a global scale. And, of course, we want to salute the soldiers because throughout history, there has always been the warrior. So it's not the warrior's fault. But thrown into the grinder, they have no choice but to follow orders. We need to do a better job of selecting people who give orders. And I'm not getting into anything political here. I'm just not a fan of parties. You need to do your own research and make sure that we don't put good people in harm's way for greedy, powerful reasons. Because our ancestors had to deal with that in the wake of that war. And then again, in 1941. And it never quite stops. But that's why history is important. We got to remember where we came from and what happened when we went down the wrong path. Hopefully we don't go down there again. But until then, we have a milestone every year to remind us about what our ancestors went through and how tough we really are. I'll see you guys on the stage when I'm telling jokes. Thanks.